We take this from the interview process when an employer is hiring somebody. They'll typically ask some knockout questions so they don't waste their time with an interview, like do you have reliable transportation, that kind of thing, right? The first question we ask is, are you aware of a foreclosure sale? So if there's a auction sale scheduled on the calendar, then a lot of times we can't get that canceled so that we can facilitate a short sale. The second question we ask is if they filed a bankruptcy and is the house included in their filing. If they filed a BK and the house is inside of that BK, generally we can't facilitate a short sale. The last thing we want to know is if there's anybody in control of that property and on the mortgage that is going to contest us trying to get this short sale done. So a lot of times that happens if there's like a divorce scenario and one person wants to stay in the house, another person wants to sell the house. And if you have a conflict like that, that could get in the way of getting this short sale done because you need everybody who's in control of the property to participate. So in summary, if there's no foreclosure sale scheduled, nobody's filed a bankruptcy recently and or the house wasn't included in the bankruptcy, and nobody is going to contest this short sale, everybody wants to get it sold to avoid the foreclosure, then you have a good listing. Step 3 is securing the listing. And like I said before, there aren't too many differences between a traditional listing and a short sale listing, but there are some advantages of a short sale listing. Here's why. With a short sale, they're not going to get any net sale proceeds from the closing. There might be some relocation money that's available through different programs, but they can't profit on this house because the lender's taken a haircut. So the net sale proceeds aren't going to be a concern for the seller on a short sale listing, which means that they're not going to haggle you over commission. They're not going to haggle you over the price of the property because you're going to list it for a price that you think you can sell it for, and then we're going to work to get that approved by the lender. They're not going to object to any repairs that you may have to suggest, like on a traditional listing. Maybe there's a weird paint color on the wall, or maybe you're going to suggest fixing some rotted wood on the outside, or maybe the carpet's just a weird color or just run down. And you've had sellers before that would object to things like that. In this case, they could actually work to our advantage to have some repairs on the property, which we'll talk about here in a second. And then 4 is you don't have to do a lot of marketing, the robust marketing, and pay for different things like virtual tours or a drone video or anything like that. You're not going to have to do a lot of that stuff with a short sale listing because you're going to be marketing the property and selling it based on the criteria of the lender, which says that you just have to have it listed with a realtor and on the MLS. As far as the next steps go, it's pretty simple. The first thing you're going to do, obviously, after you get your listing paperwork done, is you put it on the MLS. Keep in mind that a lot of boards and MLSs require you to put some kind of language in the public remarks, like some disclaimer that says this is a short sale subject to third-party approval, because you want buyers agents and buyers to know that, right? The second thing you're going to do is then contact LMS. That's when we get involved and we start the file and start engaging with the seller and the lender. Part of putting that file together is getting a copy of the listing paperwork and the MLS printout. Some things you want to communicate to the seller to manage their expectations and keep them happy is threefold. Number 1 is that the process takes anywhere from 3 to 9 months. Remember that we are working on the lender's schedule, not ours. Number 2 is that we're going to be working with the seller to collect different documents, and the more responsive they are, the easier we can facilitate the approval for their short sale. And then lastly is we're going to be communicating with all parties involved, from you, the seller, and the buyer's agent about where we are with that lender. One of the best practices in the process is to include a short sale addendum in your listing paperwork. And a lot of times your board or your MLS can provide that for you. If they can't, we have a generic version. You just want to make sure that it complies with your state requirements and your broker is okay with it. One of the most important elements of getting a short sale approved is listing it at a good price. It's kind of a balance. So on one hand, we want it to be a compelling enough price for buyers to purchase a short sale. On the other hand, we want it to be a high enough price for the lender to approve that price. You have to keep in mind that this is a sale that is subject to third party or lender approval. So technically, you could have a seller and a buyer execute a contract with a $1 sale price, but it's subject to third party approval. Because here's what happens. Once we have the buyer and the seller execute a contract or a purchase agreement, we add that to the file. We're working with the lender to get it approved. The lender always sends out a BPO agent to get their BPO. It's kind of like an informal appraisal. The The BPO stands for broker price opinion. Sometimes they'll even do a formal appraisal, but they want to get a sense for what the fair market value is of the property. And then they compare that to what we're showing them they're going to net on this sale. And as long as it's an acceptable number to them based on their BPO or their appraisal, then they'll approve that sale and they'll avoid that foreclosure. So that's kind of the process, and that's a dance that we're playing with the price. So your broker may have some different suggestions on this, but our rule of thumb is we like to price the property at about 90% of what the comps are showing us that property would be worth if it was completely fixed up and market ready, right? So here's how we kind of calculate that.